Good morning, guys. Danny here at PARTAY. Hope you guys are having a good morning this morning. Mine was pretty light compared to most days, so I decided I was going to come out and just kind of go on cruise control here and just chit chat with folks about our upcoming paint mix launch. I'll hit this real quick and then I'll move on from it, but I want to apologize first because I said I was going to make an announcement over the weekend. The truth is I wasn't really planning on making an announcement over the weekend. If you'll understand, really what I wanted to do was just to see how Ken was going to react to that. And it's been funny for me to watch because you see he's been scrambling, trying to figure out how he's going to counter this, right? And he can't. He can't counter anything. And I'm not saying that to be ballsy. I'm just saying he really can't counter anything. I mean, what's going to happen is going to happen, and nothing that he's going to do on his side is going to impact that whatsoever. But it's funny to watch him scramble. You see now he's looking to bring Crystal Edge 2.0 back. He's bringing everything coming back. He can't bring sexy back, but he can bring these old junky paint mixes back. You can't bring sexy back because it was never there to begin with. All right. But, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're going to be launching. There's a part of me that gets excited and is also a bit humbled by the fact that, we don't do a lot of videos compared to a lot of other folks. And over the course of time, that's kind of always been the case. We've only sold whenever it's been convenient for us to sell. That's just the honest truth. I mean, whenever I have family stuff going on, PARTAY sales always kind of take a back seat to that because, quite frankly, it needed to. My family comes first and foremost, and I'm not leaning on that. That's just all the way it's been. But that is going to change a bit. Not because family's going to become a backseat, but because we're setting things up to where it doesn't have to, PARTAY doesn't have to become a backseat to anything that happens. The only time I would suspect that you would see us kind of close down the carts with our paint mix line is when I'm on vacation. I've got a couple of vacations that'll be coming up this year. And during those weeks, we will shut down the carts because no one's going to be here to process. Now, I could actually set somebody up here to process during that time, but just to make sure there's no complications, we'd probably just shut down during that period. But you're only talking about 2 weeks there that would be planned. If something, and hopefully nothing bad comes up, but if something was to come up, that may happen for a day or two, but I wouldn't expect any more than that. And there's a reason for it. It's because we've been busy building up a stock, a monumental stock compared to what I've kept in the past. Essentially, we're keeping somewhere around 40 to 50 canisters of each paint mix on hand. So that way we're able to deliver PARTAY in an on-demand fashion. So in other words, you make an order, we're going to pull that canister, we're going to shake that canister, we're going to package that canister, and we're going to ship it out at the latest the next day. So, and then it would be 1 to 3 day delivery. So it's not going to be where I have to understand how many orders I have to understand how much product to make, and then try to get it shipped out on our processing days. So it'll be a different setup. Our pickups will happen here at the house. So I've already talked to, our carrier to see what I need to set up. I'm going to have a little bin set up for them to check daily. And whatever's in that bin, they'll take with them, right? So we would make sure that it's there that morning. And they usually come around about somewhere between 12:30 to 1:30 in the afternoon. So everything that would be shipping out that day would be out in the bin. So it's a different shipping model. It's a different business model for us. There's a lot of excitement around here, around it. But I wanted to talk a little more about what it is. And I'll just kind of give you some preliminary information because I've kind of held off on that. I just put out enough information. Once again, thank you to Silent for, putting out the message there. But that was just a preliminary message to see what kind of impact that would have out there amongst, competition. And so it's just say it's exciting to see. I've always felt like we've been a leader in this space. When we got started, we started with spray paints, paint mixes, all kinds of over-the-counter kind of stuff, home stuff that you use. Some really oddball stuff. I won't go heavy into it, but I'll just tell you we've even experimented with things like charcoal, things like that, right, over the course of time. There are tons of stuff that we've experimented with to see where you can take it, what you can do with it, what are some of the best materials, because this is the truth, folks. It's less about color. You've heard me say that Ken knows paint and color. And what I mean by that is he knows how to take some sort of over-the-counter paint, try to throw some shiny stuff into it, which is, kind of a common practice out there. That's the reason I call it more craft, because what he's selling for $200 to $300 or more is something that people out there are doing in their home. And probably even as good, if not better, in some cases. And there's no need to spend that kind of stupid money for a really bad paint mix. So, that's the paint portion. But then the color is, everything's about, he's gunmetal, black technology. Okay, first of all, as I've always said, there's no technology there. Okay, this is paint, and you're throwing some mica and some paint thinner in there. There's no technology involved in any of that. But the truth is when you study, and think about it here, we're in the frame of projection screens. So paint is the easiest medium for most people to go to. Understand that. Not knocking it, just saying it's not the optimal. And here's why, because, paints are generally, they contain components that make them either too thick or they don't allow for any real optical manipulation, because you've got so many components in there that are super absorbent unless you're dealing with a light paint. You can get away with a lot of stuff using a very light paint, and there probably are, a spectrum of very light grays where you could buy something at Lowe's or Home Depot and you're not going to see a major difference between it and, say, a very light paint mix. It's truth. Then it becomes, is it worth the trouble for you to accumulate a bunch of swatches to see what's going to work best for you? My argument has always been, if you're looking to save money, then yeah, grab you, when you make your next trip to Lowe's or Home Depot, grab you some swatches and just kind of see, kind of what you like. At least it'll give you an idea of what level of darkness you appreciate and you don't. I think even if you're not going to try to make your own, that it behooves you to try to understand where your appetite lies, right? Ultimately. So, but the difference here is that it's really not about, and I'll give you an example here. Many of you guys have heard about Vanna Black. It's vertically aligned nanotube array, right? And what it is it's a carbon-based CVD, which is a chemical vapor deposition, which essentially means that what they do is in a controlled environment, they apply certain materials to a substrate under those specific environments, because there's a lot of things made this way. But with Vanta specifically, they're setting it up to grow these carbon nanotubes. And the reason that Vanna Black appears so black is not because it is so black. It's actually not. It appears so black because it does not reflect any light. The amount that it reflects back is so nominal. I mean, you're talking about a material here, a medium that absorbs 99 point, I think it's 99.965 or so percent of all light, all visible spectrum light. And that didn't include X-rays and things like that. But what we see, what we perceive in the visible spectrum, Vanna absorbs all of that. It's funny to me because I heard Ken a while back. He was talking about Vanna Black, and he said he'd love to get his hands on some of that and make a screen out of it. That's the most idiotic statement I've ever heard, because you would never receive any of your projector light back. It would just get sucked up, and you would just be looking at a black surface. Added to that, the fact that, one, it's not sold to individuals, okay? And even if it was, you would have to have very expensive, very specific application equipment. So it's just an idiotic statement, imbecilic all the way around. But while PARTAY, what we're doing with our paint screen mixes is not that fancy, guys, okay? It's not as advanced as growing nanotubes on a substrate. But it does apply here in the sense that you have to understand the material. And the inclusion of certain materials is what is going to lead you. You're going to be able to enhance. For example, on a black, you're going to be able to create a black that's not as black as it looks. And that's perception, and perception is huge in the area of projection. But it's going to be perceived as very black, yet it's going to be brighter than a lighter black. So it's understanding the medium, it's understanding how light interacts with specific content, and what content would either improve reflectivity or improve absorption. And both serve you very well if they're balanced. Where Goppity Goop, our specular mixes, were focused on transmission and then balancing out the absorption and reflectivity. This is going to be, our paint mixes are going to be less about transmission. There's always some degree of transmission there, but it's not really about transmission with these paints. It is all about balanced reflectivity and absorption. So just to give you an example, the blacks, the whole purpose is to work towards a less absorbed black. When you move into your lighter materials, you want more absorption in those lighter materials so that they'll stand up a little better without having to push the gain, because these are going to be Lambertian paint mixes, at least for the most part. So the whole point there is to hold the image as well as you can. I mean, I could go into detail as to what that means, but just, the way that most people perceive that is that you're holding the image longer through absorption, because with a lighter screen, you've got a lot more overhead with your light. So we've spent a long time. Guys, I've been planning for this for months. And one thing we knew is that we were going to need to change our distribution. The primary thing I'm focused on is I really want to spend the first few months understanding our stock reservoir, because a couple of years ago, some of you guys may remember that we had talked about going on to Amazon. It would just be easier to, have them, deliver them, stock to distribute through Amazon. We can still continue to sell from our website, but we could sell through Amazon. They'll get obviously a cut of it, but the exposure would be great, right? So I need to understand, just how much stock we're going to need to keep on hand with them before I would go into any kind of agreement. So we want to kind of get a sense for what we would have. Now, I know once we get out there on the platform, that may change because, it's a broader platform. But at least we'd be able to have some sort of preparedness in place if we were to get any kind of massive, orders, considering this is going out to millions of people. So, that being said, here's a couple of things I'm going to tell you about our lineup. So the first thing is that these are not going to be over-the-counter paints that we just add stuff to. There's no over-the-counter paint used to make PARTAY paint mixes. Second thing is that we're going to be offering a wider variety of color variations. You'll see that there's going to be a product for every product that we sell now. For example, we have Daystar, we have Vega, we have Vega Plus, we have Polaris, we have Sirius A and Sirius B. Now you'll have one of those in the paint mix category. They won't be exactly the same color. The tone's going to change a little bit because it is a paint mix as opposed to a specular mix. Really want to be able to offer, you know, a tone for every appetite that would be out there. Plus there's a couple of variations you'll see whenever we formally launch, but there'll be a couple of nice additions to the lineup. Third thing is, third thing, these paints have zero inclusion of any reflective solids. There's zero mica, zero metallic paint, zero anything that you would add into a mix to try to increase the reflectivity, right? Zero of anything like a shiny material. None of that's going to be in there. We know how to manipulate we know how to manipulate the material to get it to the exact gain that we want and is optimized for that color tone. So no reflective solids. They're going to continue to be a thinner mix. Why? Because PARTAY's never going to make a thick mix. Thick mixes and screens, in my opinion, do not go well together. You're going to get more texture on the screen. The whole point is to be able to coat your screen with something that's not going to leave a lot of texture. So that way you get more clarity in your imagery. Now, if you have, let's say, a screen that already has a degree of sort of bumpiness to it because you've painted it so many times, that won't prohibit you from using this. You can still use it. It's just, it's not going to add any additional texture of any real noticeable amount to what you already have. And unlike gobbledygook, because gobbledygook, you notice we told you on the specular stuff that you wanted a really flat surface. You didn't want a really textured surface. And that's because when you're basing your imagery off transmission, it's going to show, and it almost looks like it's showing from behind the image, right? That you've got some kind of texture going on in the image. With the PARTAY screen paints, you're never going to pick that up. It's not going to show that the way that gobbledygook does. And that's not a knock at gobbledygook. Keep in mind, formulas were designed to replicate manufactured ALR screens without microstructures. That was the whole purpose of those. It continues to be the whole purpose of those. These are screen paint mixes. They're going to work differently than our specular ALR coatings. So low texture. Can wipe it off very easy. You don't have to worry about the paint coming off. I could go back and show you today, and this has been well over a year now. I could take the Phantom sample that I had in there, wipe it with a wet napkin, and I'm still going to get paint to come off. I know, I just did it 2 days ago. That's not going to happen with PARTAY screen paints. So you're going to get something that you can maintain. It also has a UV shield included in it, just in case you do use it outside. Now, that's going to be less meaningful if it's a lighter screen, but especially if you take, you know, a dark screen, and let's say it's summertime, you put it out, you set it up for something, even though you're only leaving it out there maybe for the afternoon to prepare for something that evening, UV will damage a screen pretty quickly. So we want to make sure that that was covered in there, but also it's got a stain resistor in there. So anytime that you would go to wipe that off, it should just dry to its normal finish, and you won't have to worry about wiping off the paint or having to recoat it if you were to get, as Ken says, ketchup or mustard on the screen. So we look at it from all dimensions. It's not just a matter of can you get a good image, but do you have a screen you can maintain, houses get dusty. It's just a matter of fact. And you can either use like a Swiffer or something like that, something dry to try to wipe it off. If you use on some of these paint mixes, if you use like a paper towel, you're going to leave paper towel residue because they're still, some are, a little gritty. I would say, everything I've seen from Ken has been more of a gritty texture. It's either light gritty or gritty, but it's got a gritty texture. And you can't just use like a wet paper towel to wipe that off. It just won't work. You can't, if you use a dry one, like I said, you're going to have all kinds of residue on there. So we want the whole product, okay? The whole product. And that means that it's not just about how great it looks on your screen, how great it looks as far as the imagery, but also how easy it is to maintain. And all of that at a very, very affordable price. So just wanted to share a little bit of that with you on what we have planned. Did y'all hear the 2.0's coming back? Blue Tuesday. Actually, today's Thursday. All right, folks. Well, that's it. I think I've got enough out there to kind of get us going. We'll be doing the formal launch soon, and I'll announce our launch date, which is coming up very soon. We're just doing some last minute things. Be frank with you, the one thing that I didn't do is that I needed cap labels, and so we're designing sort of the cap labels now and having those printed. I'll take the masters to have prints made probably either tomorrow or sometime during the day on Saturday, so that we can be prepared for that, because the canisters, that's exactly how we choose and we'll pull. Is you'll look at the top and they'll be labeled by what product it is. All right, so with that, guys, I'm going to wish you a very happy Thursday. I hope everything goes well for you today, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.